Has the ball. Spins it in his hands. Free throw up. It's good. It's over. Team LeBron has won the 69th NBA All-Star Game. 157-155 over Team Giannis.
Your boy's moving. It's a walk-off on ESPN Radio. Mark Kessinger, John Barry on the call. What an all-star game last night. Team LeBron rallied from an 11-point deficit in the fourth quarter to beat Team Giannis 157-155. Anthony Davis, Chicago's very own, hits the walk-off free throw to seal the deal. The first NBA All-Star game decided by 2 points or fewer in the last decade. Kawhi Leonard finished with 30 points, 17 rebounds, 4 assists, including 8 three-pointers, and to win the first ever Kobe Bryant MVP award, newly named this year. He joined Michael Jordan as the only players to win All-Star MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Finals MVP. Staying in the NBA, according to our very own Adrian Wojnarowski and Brian Windhorst, Cleveland and coach John Beilein have discussed the possibility of him stepping down as coach before the end of the NBA All-Star break. And Beilein is expected to reach a decision in the next 24 to 48 hours, sources tell ESPN. He's expected to speak with Cavs GM Kobe Altman about his future as soon as today, sources say. Remember, Beilein signed a 5-year contract with Cleveland after leaving the University of Michigan before the season. And it's February, but we've got some college football news. Clemson might have fallen short in the national championship, but for the national championship game, but for the second straight year, the Tigers enter the season as the top team according to ESPN's Football Power Index. Clemson returned 6 starters on each side of the ball, including all 4 defensive linemen, one of the favorites to win the Heisman and quarterback Trevor Lawrence, and just behind Clemson, the team the Tigers beat in the Fiesta Bowl, Ohio State.
Sports Center brought to you by Nature Valley. If you love Nature Valley sweet and salty bars, you'll love the new sweet and salty minis. It's all the indulgent, savory goodness you know, now in a smaller size and at 100 calories. Snacking has never been so sweet.
I thought Manfred's punishment was weak.
Clayton Kershaw, is he going to be out there ripping the heck out of the Astros while knowing that the ice might melt underneath his feet?
And then you get the owner up there saying some dumb stuff. And how can you be that ignorant to the situation?
You know, in 2 days, we're going to find out the Dodgers were doing that.
Everyone knows they stole the ring from us.
There is no World Series champion from 2017. They should have that trophy confiscated. And if you're not going to do that, insert Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame.
Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Jason fits in for Trey with Mike Golic Jr.
Well, Michael Stanley going.
Well, you got a big grin on that one.
Was in Cleveland for the weekend after the All-Star game in Chicago. That Friday, flew to Cleveland. My niece's shower was going on, wedding. My niece Jenna, her shower. And then that night, me and my wife and my brothers and their wives went to see Michael Stanley Band. Michael Stanley is going to be 72 years old next month, and he sounds phenomenal. It was awesome.
Bury the lead. My dad got hammered in the middle of the day with a bunch of the dads around this thing and was drunk texting our family.
Chris is in the shower with Jen and all the ladies in this place in Willoughby, Ohio. Wonderful place. And I'm sitting at the bar, and the bride's father, Marty, he comes in, and me and the groom, Kevin, and his father are there. So there's 4 of us as we're in the bar, and they're having their party going on. And 3 hours later, man, I'm like, wow, what happened? I got served a lot of beer, and I drank a lot.
I looked down at my phone in the middle of the day. I'm still in Chicago, and I just see a text in our family's group chat that says, "Holy bleep, Dad is drunk," from him. He went third person. He was so drunk.
Yeah, my wife walked out when this thing ended. She just looked at me. And just said, "Give me the keys."
You know what? All I'm hearing here is you had a good time in the afternoon, and you rallied and still went to a concert that night. Come on.
The rally was big because of the nap that I took.
Okay, but that's
so I did straighten out, was able to go to the concert. But kudos to Michael Stanley, man. You still got it, my friend. No doubt about it.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
What?
Jason fits in for Trey. Michael.
Just the start of the morning. Kudos to Michael Stanley. You still got it.
Got it, man. Listen, I hope to be at 72, being able to be as good as what he's doing still at 72 and singing. Let me tell you, like that.
Well, one thing we know is that as great as Michael Stanley is, the other end of it is where Major League Baseball is right now. It's time for
trying
some
to
straight
find
talk.
some kind of correlation.
I'm working on it. Yeah. All right, Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Rob Manfred, we knew we were going to hear from him at some point. Now, you can only hope and pray to the baseball gods that when we finally get to hear from baseball commissioner Rob Manfred, that he would handle it better than, I don't know, the Astros did. You know, you got all this time. You know what's coming. You know you're going to be asked the hard questions. So I want you to hear a little bit of what Rob Manfred had to say. And we'll start for some of his press conference. He spoke to the press, and he told everybody essentially that this entire operation to him was a success.
Our desire to find the facts, to figure out what really went on, drove a lot of the decisions that we made in the investigative process. And you might look backwards and say, you know, I would have made a different decision. I will tell you this, I think the worst possible outcome for this institution would have been if we'd conducted an investigation and came back and said, you know, we just couldn't figure out what went on. People had a right to know what happened, and we did achieve that goal.
Now, that's an important note there, because he's saying the one thing we couldn't do is come out and not have information. That's important because he had an exclusive sit-down with Carl Ravitch and was asked about the decision that many has deemed controversial to give the Astros players immunity. And this is important. This is what he said to Carl Ravitch about that decision.
I think that, in a way, the piece that no one appreciates is that...
That's the wrong one. Hold on. We'll get to that, Rob. Different line here. Here is Rob talking about the Astros decision.
In a perfect world, they would have been disciplined. We gave them immunity in pursuit of what we thought was the most important goal, that is, you know, clearing the air. I mean, can you imagine if we'd done an investigation, we granted nobody immunity, we preserved our ability to discipline everybody, and we couldn't find enough facts to defend the discipline? I mean, we couldn't do that.
I mean, listen, there's part of me that does understand that. We want to get the truth. The players are going to tell us the truth, but we're going to have to give them immunity or something for them. I think something else that they had talked about as well was Rob Manfred talked about the battle he would have with the union if they tried to discipline the players. And my initial thought was, so what? You know, you battle the union all the time on certain things.
It's almost your job as commissioner half the time.
So battle them. But also in the report, it is said that between Jeffrey Lunau and A.J. Hinch, that they had the memorandum about the no videotaping and the rules, and that those guys never read it or shared it with the players. So I tried to equate it to, and listen, the players knew it was wrong. So let me just say, I'm not excusing the players, nor will I ever. I'm not excusing. They got busted. But I think part of it would have been, and the only thing I kind of equated it with was, if a guy did something wrong and you knew he did something wrong, and then he was forgot, they didn't read him his Miranda rights, right? And you get off on a technicality. Could these players have gotten off on that technicality of saying, well, you never read the memo, and it was in the report? Yeah, we never read the memo to the players. Would they have been able to get off on that technicality? Add to that, what Rob Manfred said is, we wanted the truth. We had players willing to tell us the truth, so we weren't going to discipline them. So there's part of me that can understand it. There's part of me that says, listen, as I said, I was a line stepper as well. And I always said, if you get busted, you pay the price. That's just the way it is when you take that chance. But Rob explaining why he didn't do it. So the other side of it for me, and I have never been one of these to go along with vacating things. But I said, given all these circumstances, that you weren't going to punish the players because they were telling you the truth, and maybe the not being read the memo. You know what? I think I would take away the World Series. I think I would leave it blank and say, you know what? You're not going to get the honor of saying you won the World Series in 2017.
All right, so working through all those points here.
Sorry, I made a lot.
Going through them. The first one I would say is, when usually you're giving people up, right? Like when you're saying, all right, we're going to take information in exchange for immunity. We think of this as, well, you're going for bigger fish, right? Every like heist movie, every cop movie always involves, well, we're taking these low-level guys and we're giving them.
We don't want you.
We're cutting deals for them to get to the big fish and all this. This is way above their pay grade. It's bigger than we all thought in this. This one, I understand Lunau in the front office played a part in it, and there's all these emails and code breaker and all these things, but at the end of the day, did the commissioner's report not state that this was a player-led thing?
Yes, it did.
So the big fish in this is the guys that you're giving immunity to in order to fire a bunch of other people that weren't as directly involved. And maybe I'm not giving credence to what an organizational-wide effort this was, and the idea that it did go further because of the front office, and maybe there's some credence to that. But there's still part of me that thinks like, the people you were going after and the ones you should have really been trying to go after were the exact ones you gave immunity to. And I can, like you, kind of reason why you would do that, but the ultimate goal should still be to punish the people doing the most wrong, and that still happens to be the players in this instance.
Especially given the fact that it's the players that are the stars and the faces of the organization. I mean, that's a reality to me that you're right. I mean, what's the most damning way that you can make a statement is if you go after a superstar baseball player and tell him he's never going to get to play again. Now that sends a statement. Getting rid of a manager and a GM that most people on the street have never heard of it's cute. But
we hadn't heard of Lunau until all of the things that happened in that Astros clubhouse after the postseason game where there was the yelling at the female reporter. Like, until then, the average fan was not as well acquainted with Jeffrey Lunau as we ended up being in the course of this. Your point about the championship was one that I had the same realization coming into work this morning, because I'm sitting here and I'm kind of hemming and hawing about all this, and I go, you know what, for the same reason, but I think it's justified, because usually when we look at the idea of vacating wins, vacating titles, it's things like, well, we're going to vacate, wins from USC because someone bought Reggie Bush a house or a car. And it's like, all right, well, one of those things doesn't influence
no correlation
the body
to
of the game.
play.
Our games at Notre Dame were vacated because of some academic discrepancies that went on there. But it didn't have any effect on what was on the field, unless you want to say those kids shouldn't have been eligible, blah, blah. It wasn't affecting the competitive balance on the field in any meaningful way. This is exactly what that was. This was sign stealing that, despite what they have protested in the course of this, absolutely gives you a competitive advantage. There is no disputing that in anybody's mind. And so if you wanted to take this one away, I'd look at it and go, yeah, you're pretty justified. You're about as justified as you could be.
And I'm also really bothered by Rob Manfred's response to that. His quote, "The idea of an asterisk or asking for a piece of metal back seems like a futile act." So that's what a World Series. It's a piece of metal.
When you're presenting it, it's not a piece of metal. All of a sudden, it's the greatest trophy in the world. But now it's a piece of metal. See, and I'm with you. I completely disagree with him on this one, just for the fact that these guys were guilty. They were found to be guilty. And there is zero punishment. I mean, zero. And I don't want to hear of, they're going to be looked at differently. Whatever, okay? Well, there is zero. When guys take PEDs and get busted for it, they lose games and they lose money. These guys lost nothing. So that's why I am so normally against vacating something. But you know what? They lost nothing. Give them nothing. And when Rob Manfred will say, well, do you want to set precedent? Yes! Every now and then, you have to set precedent. These guys basically had a scheme. It worked. They won the World Series. Don't give it to them. Don't let them say they were the 2017 winners of the World Series. That would be the only actual physical punishment you would see in this thing for the players.
Every time I hear some reference of when you listen to the players, you hear how sorry they are, frustrated they are, contrite they are. You hear all of that. It reminds me of a kid. And it reminds me of the movie Christmas Story when they're all in trouble because Flick's outside with his tongue attached to the pole. And the teacher's like, oh, you know what you did. And the kids are like, oh, we got away with it. When you get there, you know what we did. You got away with it. That's where we are at this point. And I'll say this, not only is he talking about precedent, but to throw a little bit of this back on Rob Manfred, he still hasn't even set new precedent. Like, there is no moment, and they've had how long to prepare for this moment? Rob Manfred still hasn't told us that there will be an epic penalty for anyone that cheats moving forward. It shouldn't be lost in this that he has not come out and said, you know what? One thing we're going to do as Major League Baseball is make sure that anybody that's ever part of a scheme like this again faces a punishment of at least 10 years. And if the Baseball Players Association wants to fight us so that they can keep cheating in the game, we'll fight that fight publicly. No, he hasn't done that. He's just come back and said, well, I think, we're doing the best we can to get the most info we can with no action moving forward either.
It's just like what happens when guys throw at people. And we say, if you really wanted to take all of like the beanball out of baseball where guys are throwing at each other all the time, you would suspend pitchers a lot longer than 5 days, a.k.a. one start in a lot of this. But you don't actually have a vested interest in stopping that, and so you allow it to go on. This proves, all right, wait a minute. So Didn't lose any MVP awards.
Nope.
Didn't lose any money in all this.
Nope.
Still get to keep the World Series title.
And it's
at the worst in all of this is Rob Manfred saying, well, these guys are going to have to deal with the fact. Rob Manfred actually said it's our job to present the facts and let other people decide what they think about this. So years later now, when people think of the 2017 World Series, there are going to be some people that cast doubt on these. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but more or less, this is what Rob Manfred telling. No, it's your job to deter this going forward, and that's not happening right now in any meaningful way, to Jason's point. It's the Christmas story example is perfect. It is going to be the Astros sitting around in the clubhouse going, guys, we did it.
I mean, that's Straight Talk Wireless, everything for less, only at Walmart. And part of what you just said, Mike, that, Rob Manfred is basically laying out there saying, all we can do is present the evidence, and we'll let everybody else make the determination. At the same time, though, he's also making it clear that those people to make a determination are not other players, because they are already talking about, hey, we're not going to allow vigilante justice.
Yeah.
Now, if anyone thinks vigilante justice isn't going to be a real thing, I want you to hear this back and forth, because there are a couple of pieces of audio here that are important. One is Cody Bellinger has not been quiet from the Dodgers. No. He has not been quiet at all. And, I mean, it's as simple. This best summarizes what he thinks of the Astros in general.
I know personally I lost respect for those guys. I think I would say everyone in the show, in the big leagues, lost respect for those guys.
And he gives a very specific example of something that he simply won't buy, and that is Jose Altuve not wanting his shirt ripped off. And Bellinger doesn't mince words here.
I don't know what human hits a walk-off home run against Aroldis Chapman to send your team to the World Series. And one has the thought to say, don't rip my jersey off, but two, go in the tunnel, change your shirt, and then come out and do your interview. Like that makes no sense to me, because I know me. Gary Sanders said yesterday, you can rip my shirt off, my pants off. I sent my team to the World Series off for Aroldis Chapman, and the ninth inning at home, I'm going crazy.
Didn't we get changing stories now? Wasn't it first that his wife didn't like the shirt being ripped off, but isn't now he got a bad tattoo?
Bad collarbone tattoo.
Whoa, just keep changing that story.
Well, by the way, now that I say it, great fantasy football or baseball team name, bad collarbone tattoo.
Oh, God. To see how heated this is going to get, because you can hear the frustration in Cody Bellinger's voice. So let's not sleep on the fact that he's echoing a sentiment from many Major League Baseball players. But Carlos Correa, the Astros shortstop, he's not here to hear it, which is also alarming.
We're here now in spring training, and everybody is talking about the Houston Astros and what we did in 2017. We got to take that on the chin, Ken. We got to take that on the chin. Whatever people have to say, the facts that people have to say, we got to take that on the chin. What doesn't sit well with me is when you say false statements. If you don't know the facts, if you're not informed, this is America, Ken. You can say whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. But Cody Bellinger's job is to look for information, get informed, know the facts for sure. Before he stands in front of cameras to talk about other players, you should get informed. You should be informed before you talk about other players. If you don't know the facts, then you got to shut the
Woo! Now, Correa has said that Josh Reddick, Tony Kemp, and we've heard Tony Kemp come out and say that he said no to being involved in this. And Correa also said that Altuve was not involved in the trash can sign stealing stuff in 2017.
Since they had also said, it was Bellinger that also said he stole the MVP.
Stole the MVP from Aaron Judge. Exactly. So, well, listen, we have not heard the Astros basically do anything correct. Some of the apologies, we're fine. But, dude, man, you got busted. You got caught. Man,
can an open
ease up. Are you serious?
Can a cheater come in and say, you know what? What I can't stand are people that make false statements.
Know how we cheated, okay?
Know the facts. Like, all right, well, you cheated, so now you're going to question the integrity of somebody that's coming at you for it? Oh, my God.
We have reached peak audacity in this thing. And so it's become funny now because it's been so much of them now hearing the reverb back at them that they're starting to get a little agitated. Because remember, this is one thing that we've heard about the Astros franchise, and it was front office on down, is there is a lot of pride and a lot of bravado, so much so that they have rubbed a lot of people the wrong way as an organization. What we do with this going forward, because we talked about this, the kind of legs this story that's going to have, the best version of this is Astros turning heel.
Yeah,
like the
that's
Astro,
right.
the
You have a
Astros,
villain.
the best version of this for Major League Baseball, because this is already is now compelling. Like, this is the offseason juice we usually get in the NBA, where then we take storylines and bad blood and it makes its way into the season. On the field, like I'm with you to a certain extent, Dad, that at some point it's going to become about baseball again, but it's going to be baseball with this added vitriol on it. Now it's going to be baseball wondering now for me how fast the fastball Carlos Correa is going to take to the ribcage is going to be at some point. It's the idea that we could potentially see these two teams play meaningful games again late in the season, in the postseason potentially, and get this playing out between two teams that have great players all across the board. They can very well still accomplish that. And now if you do all of it with a group of players in the Houston Astros that are willing to be the bad guy a little bit and push back against all this, like, we're getting genuine emotion and genuine disdain from all parties involved. And if you're Major League Baseball, we've talked about star making, all this stuff, sometimes a villain's just as good.
Yeah, listen, I'm looking forward to them. I think a lot of people may be, listen, baseball, it's no secret, baseball has been hurting from their ratings and such, and maybe now with this storyline, and now we're going to see retaliation, of which Dusty Baker, the new manager in Houston, is already, and he's doing what he should do to protect his players.
Dusty's been done dirty in this whole situation.
Oh, yeah. Dusty's saying, hey, I hope they're not going to be throwing at our guys, and Rob Manfred has said he's going to have a meeting or a call with all the managers, right, about the way to retaliate, is not put somebody else in harm's way.
But again, what's maddening is that Manfred hasn't had time to come up with what the discipline should be for this moving forward for cheating. He hasn't had time to work on that, but he has had time to work on a memo, and this is the quote, about intentionally throwing at batters. It's really dangerous. Completely independent from the Astros investigation, we'll be issuing a memorandum on hit by pitches, which will increase the disciplinary ramifications of that type of behavior.
Completely separate.
Totally separate. I mean, it's a totally separate thing. I mean, this is just a joke. Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Commercial insurance through Progressive protects your business and your dream. Choose from over 30 coverage options at progressivecommercial.com. Keep in mind, the first time somebody gets suspended for hitting one of these guys with a pitch, they will face more games than however many than all of the cheaters faced combined. Let's just understand that.
I'm Dusty Baker, the next price offense I'm having. I'm just reminding you, hey, I wasn't here last year.
The number of times he should just get a shirt that says I wasn't here last year. Coming up, the NBA debuted a new all-star format by all accounts. Huge success. We'll break it all down next. This is Golic and Wingo on ESPN.